So it's not official yet, but based off of everything that we're hearing and knowing how things typically go, I think it's safe to say that this is a fight that's going to happen. We are going to see Devin Haney versus Vasiliy Lomachenko, most likely in the first quarter of 2023. I was a little bit skeptical at first, man. I going into that last fight with Lomachenko and Jermaine Ortiz, I figured Lomachenko was going to come out with the victory. We knew going in that Bob Arum was saying, hey, I want to take the winner of that fight. I want to match him up against Haney in the first quarter of 2023. We knew all these things. But after Lomachenko gets the win, he's in the ring afterwards. Devin Haney steps in. Again, you're thinking good thought, right? This is how they build fights up. This is what they do. They bring the guy in there. Sets the stage for what's going to happen in the future. They bring Devin Haney in. And Devin Haney goes out there and he makes the statement, right? And I'm paraphrasing, but what he basically says is that I accepted all of the terms of the deal with Kambosos to get that fight. Went over to Australia, took the lesser guaranteed purse, took the lesser points, whatever it was, right? I'm sure it resulted in basically less money, less accommodations, fighting over on the champion's turf, all of those things. He's like, I did it because I wanted that fight. And it paid off. Make no mistake about it. He accepted all of that because he figured he was the better fighter. It didn't matter. All he really wanted to do was get in the ring with the man because he knew that once he got in the ring, he was the better fighter and it was going to play out the way he wanted. He had the belt. Once I've got the belt, then all the cards are in my favor. Once I've got the belt, then everybody's going to have this to dance to the tune that I play. Right? That's the thought process. And that's exactly what he came out and basically said. I accepted everything from Kambosos, so you're going to have to accept everything that I stick you with. Now, on the one hand, I can get where he's coming from. Right, we've heard Paulie Malignaggi come out recently and talk about how back in the day, Bill Haney was putting up money so that Devin Haney was able to fight on Showbox. Right? Why would he do that, you think? Most fighters don't go that route. Why would he go that route? He's going that route because he believed in his son. He was going that route because he knew all I need to do is get Devin out there in front of people. All I need to do is get him in the spotlight. And he's going to be able to do everything else. He's incredibly skilled, incredibly talented. He's driven. He's focused. He's going to be able to make all these things happen. He's not going to go out there and lose fights because of what he brings to the table. And he was right. He was absolutely right. So I'm sure that progressed Devin's career faster than it would have otherwise, or maybe it progressed it to a level that it wouldn't have otherwise until it was much later. I'm not really sure. All I know is he did that because he believed in it. Like any other investment you make. That's why he took the lesser deal going into the championship fight. It's an investment, right? That's the mindset that he had. I don't need to cash in or cash out on this one fight because once I get this belt, I'm going to have, 4 or 5 defenses or something like that before he ends up moving up in weight. He's going to have this kind of name in this resume once he does move up in weight to immediately have a trajectory to go right to the championship in whatever division that he moves up to, or maybe one fight and then a championship fight. Like those are the ways all the kind of planning works. That's kind of how the management would look at a fighter and kind of think about how he wants to plan his career and how it wants to go. So it's all playing out beautifully. But that doesn't mean it was going to play out great for getting the fight with Lomachenko. That doesn't necessarily mean that Lomachenko was going to sit there and say, look, man, everything I've accomplished in my career, now you want me to take the short end of the stick? Now you want me to all of a sudden accept some kind of bogus deal or whatever? And I don't know if it's bogus, right? I'm just throwing it out there based off of the way that Devin Haney was making things sound in the ring. Basically, he made it sound like he was going to stick him. He was going to stick him kind of with a raw deal. And he's like, if you really want the fight, you'll take it. If not, if it doesn't make sense, what do you always say? Like, if it doesn't make sense, then we're not going to do it. Or if it does make sense, then we are going to do it. So it was at that point that I had this little slight twinge when I thought, man, is there a chance that we're not going to get this fight? Like, is there a chance this is going to happen? That wasn't the case. Lo and behold, looks like we're going to get it, right? They're saying negotiations are still going on, but it looks like we'll get the fight. So look, as things get a little bit closer, we're going to break this down. I put a poll on the channel and it said, if we get this fight in the spring or the first quarter of 2023, what do you think is going to happen? And I think there was 125 votes, and it basically about to 69% of people said that Lomachenko was going to win, 31%, or 60, I'm sorry, flip that. 69% of people said that Devin Haney was going to win. 31% of people said Lomachenko was going to win. And then there was a few comments just talking about things back and forth. And it's interesting, right? Because a lot of those people, or a lot of people, period, are going to look at the last fight with Lomachenko against Jermaine Ortiz. And I get it, right? Very, very, what have you done for me lately type sport. And there's a reason for that. Guys get old. Lomachenko, that wasn't his best fight by any stretch of the imagination. He didn't look great. But I also believe 100% no matter who he fights in his next fight, he will look better. He was coming off of a layoff. I got to imagine he was coming off of a lot of stress with what's going on in Ukraine. He was over there, and I don't know exactly what he was doing. Like, I'm not picturing that all of a sudden Lomachenko turns into some special forces operator and he was out there running around on the front lines just because he was over there serving. But he doesn't have to get out of his rhythm. I mean, dude is an incredibly high-level athlete. He's been competing at the highest levels ever since he was an amateur. So you can imagine like what his day-to-day life is like, the kind of training he does, the kind of sleep that he gets, the way he's focused on his craft, his nutrition and all that. 100% of those things were disrupted when he was over there. He wasn't getting the highest level nutrition, the highest level training, the highest level sleep. He wasn't doing any of those things. All of the focus was on something else. So it wasn't just the time away from the ring. It wasn't just, I haven't been in the gym. It was things were completely different in a way that was going to negatively affect your performance as a professional level athlete. So then he comes back and we see that he just doesn't look the same, right? Make no mistake about it. He was off in almost every way that you could imagine. But we have to ask ourselves, is this Father Time catching up with Lomachenko? I mean, look, I've said it before. When you're at these lower weights, so much of it is based off, maybe that's a stretch, maybe not so much of it, but speed, explosiveness, athleticism, your reflexes, they play a bigger part at the lighter weights than they do at the higher weights. When you're talking about guys like who are at the heavyweights, they're typically able to go much longer they're typically able to be much older, right? They typically have much more longevity in their career. Or even like a guy like Deontay Wilder, they're able to start the sport later and still able to reach the highest levels. That's not what you see with these younger weights. So when we look at a guy like Lomachenko in this last fight, we're like, hey, that's it, Father Time. Eventually we knew he's undefeated. He's going to catch up to everybody. This is the very first chink in the armor that we see for Lomachenko. Because when we saw him lose that fight against Teofimo Lopez, we didn't turn around and say Lomachenko lost a step. What we said was that Teofimo Lopez came out and fought a great fight. We said that Teofimo Lopez showed up. We said that Teofimo Lopez looks like he's going to be a star in this division for many years to come. Those are all the things we said. We didn't say that Lomachenko lost a step. I get it. It was the longest layoff of his career. We found out later that he had the injury. And he's a slow starter and all of these things. But that wasn't the conversation afterwards, right? But now we're seeing this one and we're like, he ain't the same fighter anymore. He's lost a step. He's not going to be able to do this. He's not going to be able to do that. And I get it. He has. When we talk about this fight coming up with Devin Haney, I don't expect the same Lomachenko that fought Rigon Diao to show up. Those days are over with. They're never going to come back, right? You want to see him. You want to see Lomachenko perform at that level again. You got to turn on a film and watch it. But I do expect him to look better than he looked against Jermaine Ortiz. I think he's just going to be better overall. But that also doesn't mean that he's going to be good enough to beat Devin Haney. Every single person who fights Devin Haney has to deal with one thing first and foremost. You got to deal with that jab. That is arguably the best jab in the game. I know there's a lot of people out there who want to bring up some other names, and they're legitimate. There's a lot of people who have a very good jab, but Devin Haney's one of them. And I think when he's on point with that jab, man, it's probably the best in the game. Go ahead and check out my film on it. I've talked about it before, but that's the first thing that you got to deal with. Lomachenko's undersized for the division, man. He moved up for the big fights. Okay, so he's going to be the smaller man. He's going to be the shorter man. He's going to be the significantly older man. And he's going to have to be going against a guy who's got the best jab in the game. If you can't beat that jab, if you can't defend that jab, if you can't counter that jab effectively, if you can't take that jab away, you lose the fight, 100%. If you can't deal with that jab of Devin Haney effectively, there's no way you're going to beat him. Okay, but here's the flip side. We haven't seen anybody deal with the jab of Devin Haney effectively. But if and when we do, how is he going to respond? We've really only seen him face adversity one time, and it was one punch against Jorge Linares. Man, he got caught at the very end of the round. What if that would have happened with a minute left in the round? Would Linares have scored a knockdown? What would have happened if Devin Haney would have got knocked down? How's he going to respond to that kind of adversity? Right? What's going to happen if Haney throws that jab out there and Lomachenko counters it with a sharp left hand? What if he steps to the outside with that right foot, with his lead foot, steps to the outside, times it perfectly, gets his head off the center line, and just does what he's done a million times before and just catches Haney with a sharp counter left hand? Cuts a big angle, moves on him on the right, catches him with a little right hook to the body or something. Nothing significant in the sense that it hurts him. I'm not saying that, he goes flying back against the ropes. It causes a knockdown, nothing like that. But just enough where Devin Haney realizes, dude, I can't throw this jab anytime I want. I can't just completely rely on this jab to control the action. I can't rely on it to get me out of trouble. I can't rely on it to keep the distance that I want. there's times when I'm going to throw it out there and it's going to cost me. That's not really something that we've seen from him in the past. And I'll be fascinated to see, one, if Lomachenko can do that. Two, if he does, how Devin Haney handles it. Because look, I'm going into this fight saying Devin Haney should be the favorite. I expect Devin Haney to win. I think Devin Haney at this point in their careers are the better fighter. I'm fascinated to see how Haney's career turns out because I think the sky's the limit, man. But I think Lomachenko will absolutely 100% be the best fighter that he's ever faced. No doubt about it. Vasiliy Lomachenko is going to be the best fighter that he's ever faced. That being said, Lomachenko is not the best version of himself. But that doesn't mean he's not going to be able to give Haney trouble. That doesn't mean it's not going to be an incredible learning experience for Devin Haney should he come out with the victory. I mean, all in all, I think it's going to be a fascinating fight. So it's really going to be centered around that jab. Can't wait to see what happens there. As this fight gets closer, I'm going to really start to break down the film for both men and see where we go from there. I mean, look at the way Devin Haney jabs, then he clinches. Look at the way when in that last fight with Kambosos, he's working the weird movement, switching between orthodox and southpaw and everything. And so Haney starts to shoot that right hand a little bit more. Great, but he's not an aggressive fighter. What's going to happen if he has to back up and shoot his counters? What's going to happen if Lomachenko starts to set traps? Starts to work the angles. Is Haney going to be able to be as explosive, be able to beat him to the punch? That's not really been his game so far. Doesn't mean he can't do it, though. Should be a great chess match. Should be a really good fight. Both men should deal with some adversity at times. I think the younger man's going to come out with the victory, but it wouldn't be the first time that we've seen something that we didn't expect happen inside the boxing ring. So let me know what you guys think. Are you as fascinated with this one as I am? Do you think Lomachenko will look better but still not be the best version of himself? Do you think that Devin Haney, like as I do, is continually getting better every fight? But how will he deal with some adversity? How's he going to deal with the angles and the footwork that Lomachenko brings? How's he going to deal with just the craftiness and the feints and everything else? Let me know what you guys think.